What is going on, everyone? The Draft Nerd back again with another video. So yesterday I released a video just talking about my thoughts on journalism and how I feel like they don't care about the NBA draft. So if you haven't seen that, go ahead and watch that video. Somebody I know told me like, hey, I know you're interested in draft. I know you want to call yourself the Draft Nerd, but why don't you try just making Hornets content as well, since that's your favorite team? And there's not enough people talking about the Hornets. So that's not like LaMelo Ball fans or just trying to poke fun of them. So I thought, that's a good idea. So like I said, I don't know the framework of this channel. It's just me turning on the camera, talking about basketball. So whatever that may be, we'll see in the future. But here we go. Basically what I want to talk about today is how there are reports talking about how Steve Clifford is now being mentioned as a head coaching candidate for the Charlotte Hornets. Now, that is crazy because we all know he spent, what, 3 seasons or 5 seasons? Might have been 5, but I mean, fact check me if I'm wrong, but it might have been 5 seasons. He took us to the playoffs twice, and then after that, couldn't quite make it back to the playoffs. But one thing about Steve Clifford is that he's a really good defensive coach, but I think this will be an overcorrection. We don't need Steve Clifford with LaMelo Ball at all. I don't think that would work. He could get, better defense out of LaMelo, better defense out of Miles. And those are the only 2 players I can almost guarantee that will be there. I don't see the Hornets not re-signing Miles. So we have no idea what's going to happen from this point forward with the roster because today is draft day. But I don't foresee the Hornets letting go of Miles Bridges. But anyway, I don't think Steve Clifford would be the right coach. Now, one thing that is not being mentioned is that Steve Clifford and Mike D'Antoni, Steve Clifford and Mike D'Antoni work together in Brooklyn. So I could see Mike D'Antoni being a head coach, Steve Clifford as his assistant coach, like lead assistant. That would make all the sense in the world, and I think that's probably the best case scenario for the Hornets right now. You have Mike D'Antoni, who can really probably pull a lot out of LaMelo, probably pull a lot out of Miles. And like I said, those are the only 2 I feel comfortable talking about right now. Not that I don't like other players or things like that, but those are the only 2 players who I can personally assume are safe. But yeah, you have Mike D'Antoni, who can pull a lot out of Melo, pull a lot out of Miles offensively, but especially out of LaMelo. Then you have Steve Clifford, the lead assistant, working on the defense. Now, we have seen that. I don't really think the Hornets are bad at defense. I mean, they just don't have the defensive mindset. They're not paying attention. It comes down to they're just not paying attention. It's not that they're physically bad on defense. Miles is not that bad of a defender. Rotations are bad on the back end. We didn't have a real good center. So those are things that play a part in our defensive struggle. Like when the intensity needed to be turned up, we saw them play great defense. So the defense is there. We just need someone to bring it out of them, and I don't know if James Borrego was the right person to do that. And because he wasn't reaching to the players. I'm not saying he was a bad coach. I actually don't think he was that bad of a coach. My issue with him was that we were a young team and he just didn't want to play the young players. So that kind of frustrated me a little bit. And then the whole just losing the team for the 2 playing games. But anyway, Steve Clifford, I don't foresee him being head coach at all. If anything, I see him being assistant on Mike D'Antoni's staff. I think everybody's just misconstruing some reports and things like that just because that's a big headline. Like, you fire Steve Clifford, who also is known for not playing rookies. So another thing about that is Mitch Kupchak brought up that one reason for, maybe he didn't fire James Borrego, but one thing he didn't like that James Borrego did was not play the rookies. He said that was a coach's decision. Steve Clifford is the same way. Steve Clifford does not like to play younger players. So, I mean, if anything, James Borrego played, granted, LaMelo forced himself to be in the starting lineup, but Steve Clifford probably would have held out even longer in playing LaMelo, unless he just saw something like in LaMelo, which we all have. So, I mean, that could be the case. But anyway, I just want to make this video. I don't think Steve Clifford will be the coach. I think if anything, he'll be an assistant coach. So I wouldn't worry about that at all. I would just, continue to worry about who's going to be our coach in general. If Steve Clifford is being brought up in rumors, that means Mike D'Antoni is probably really close to becoming our head coach. I don't foresee that happening tonight before the draft. It could, but I just don't see it happening. Our draft picks will tell us a lot, though. I personally believe our draft picks will tell us a lot, and I'll probably make another video about that because I don't want all these videos to run long, but our draft picks will tell us a lot about at least what kind of coach we're looking for. Best player available works to an extent, but at this point, you want to be an attractive candidate to coaches. So I'm not going to say if they draft a defensive player, they're not getting Mike D'Antoni, but I will say that just how they approach the draft, that will tell you a lot about the coaching decisions. If they kind of get like a mix of players, then it probably will feel like they really aren't too sure about who's going to be their coach. But if they get kind of like the same mold of players, they may not be able to do the same thing. But if they get like backup point guard, or they get someone with like severe offensive skill, then I feel like Mike D'Antoni might be the case scenario there. I mean, we definitely need a center, so the center won't give any hand about who is going to be the coach. But just if there's other players drafted, I would pay close attention to that because that could kind of maybe give a hand about who's going to be the next head coach. But anyway, yeah, I don't think Steve Clifford is going to be the next head coach. That would be wild, but I just don't think it happened. If anything, I think he'll be a head assistant on Mike D'Antoni's staff. But I'm going to come out with more Hornets videos throughout the day because today is draft day. But I just want to go ahead and kind of clear up this quick rumor because a lot of people are worried, but I wouldn't worry about it. I don't think Steve Clifford would be a head coach for this team. It's just kind of, while him and James Borrego don't coach the same, it's almost like in the same tier, almost in the same mold. So I just don't see that happening because then at that point, what's the point of firing James Borrego? I don't think they would panic hire Steve Clifford either if Mike D'Antoni was for some reason like, I don't want the job. I don't think they would go back and try to hire Steve Clifford just by panicking. I think they would wait it out. So yeah, that does it for this video. Like I said, more Hornets content coming out later today, and so then I'll see y'all then. Peace.